Did you know that most of what you've seen, read, or heard about Billy the Kid is untrue? My name is Gail Cooper. I'm a medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist. My specialty is murder case consultation for the defense. For 20 years, I've used my expertise to uncover the real Billy the Kid. Researching over 40,000 pages of archival documents and books, I've written the revisionist history. It's shocking, it's liberating, and I've written books demolishing the hoaxes, hijacking the history. My talks will share with you what I've found. Cover-ups, misinformation, and fakery, to use Old West lingo, will bite the dust. This talk summarizes my fight to save Billy the Kid history from the modern Santa Fe Rings Billy the Kid case hoax. The information is from my book, Cracking the Billy the Kid Case Hoax, the strange plot to exhume Billy the Kid, convict Sheriff Pat Garrett of murder, and become President of the United States. This talk gives the big picture of me versus the Billy the Kid case hoax. The talks to follow will fill in details and documents. In 1999, I moved from Los Angeles area to New Mexico to write a novel about Billy the Kid, Paulita Maxwell, and the Santa Fe Ring. Left behind, as I presented in Talk 1 linked below, was my life as an MD, forensic psychiatrist. I hope to bring to life Billy Bonney and the other freedom fighters in 1870s New Mexico Territory uprisings against the corrupt political cabal known as the Santa Fe Ring. All were crushed by ring terrorism and murder, and their cause hidden, but their words speak to us through time. In his July 13, 1878 Regulator Manifesto, a day before the start of the Lincoln County War battle, Billy wrote to the brother-in-law of ringhead Thomas Benton Catron, "It is our object and efforts to protect property, but the man who plans destruction shall have destruction measured on him. Steal from the poorest or richest, American or Mexican, and the full measure of the injury you do shall be visited upon the property of Mr. Catron." The ring ended up killing Billy through Secret Service appointed Pat Garrett as a deputy U.S. Marshal, with Billy transmogrified by ring propaganda into the outlaw Billy the Kid. The year before the Lincoln County War, in New Mexico Territory's northern Colfax County, defiantly courageous Mary Tibbles McPherson risked her life in a crusade to defeat the Santa Fe Ring after it assassinated local anti-ring leader Reverend Franklin Tolby. On February 7, 1877, she mailed Federal Attorney General Alphonso Taft her charges against Thomas B. Catron, U.S. Attorney, and others. She wrote, "I wish to bring to your attention the sufferings of the people of New Mexico. In searching out the assassins of Reverend Tolby, the evidence pointed strongly to U.S. officials. All U.S. officers out here are in league together, and the people are the sufferers." She then moved to Washington, D.C. to protest in person. She was stonewalled by ring-enabling President Rutherford B. Hayes and forgotten. The 19th century ring, leaving a wake of bloodshed, infiltrated the executive, legislative, and judicial branches by bribes, vote fixings, malicious prosecutions, and defamations. No ringite was ever punished for their crimes. Ring boss Thomas Benton Catron became one of the first two senators at New Mexico's 1912 statehood. In 1921, Catron County was created, branding the state's map to this day with villainy symbol. But I wrote about this frontier drama from imagined safety of over a century's gap. Then came June 5th, 2003, and a morning fax from a friend of the front page of the New York Times. The headline blared, 122 years later, lawmen are still chasing Billy the Kid. New Mexico's Governor Bill Richardson was announcing his Brushy Bill backing fake forensic DNA Billy the Kid case, with his lawmen accomplices filing a real murder case against Pat Garrett for killing an innocent victim instead of Billy the Kid. I assumed New Mexicans would rise up against Richardson's scheme to fake Texan Brushy as Billy the Kid, making him the only governor who'd give his state's iconic history and tourism to another state for a self-serving publicity stunt. The plot was to exhume Billy in Fort Sumner and his mother in Silver City to prove their DNA didn't match, backing Brushy's claim to be surviving Billy the Kid, with his pal being Garrett's secret victim in Billy's grave. In reality, Billy's and his mother's grave sites were just tourist markers lacking valid bodies for DNA. I called people in Fort Sumner and Silver City. Everyone feared Richardson. No opposition was planned. I called the most prominent historian, Frederick Nolan, in England. He was depressed that his life's work was about to be destroyed by a farce. Left was just me. No paragon of bravery, I was scared. But by then, I'd finished my novel, having researched 40,000 pages of archival documents and books. I was an expert on the real history, and my medical specialty was forensic consultation in murder cases. I had access to the best DNA experts in the country, and I was willing to fight. In one fell swoop, my safe distance from the antique Santa Fe ring vanished. I faced the Santa Fe ring in real time. My first step was finding an attorney to oppose the Billy the Kid case lawmen hoaxers' district court petitions for exhuming Billy and his mother. Attorney Mary Hahn, a brilliant and fiery civil rights advocate, took my case and added her law firm members. But there was a problem. To be a litigant, one needs standing, meaning that one is legally impacted by the issue at hand. Trying to save the history didn't qualify me. Mary Hahn pointed out that the mayors of Silver City and Fort Sumner were legally obligated to protect their cemeteries. I contacted them, and to my relief, they agreed to join my case. I requested anonymity since it would be risky if Richardson and his henchmen knew just one person created their unexpected opposition. But its being my case had an ultimate benefit. I got copies of all the legal records it generated. For the district courts, Richardson appointed pocket judges. He also appointed hoax participant attorney Bill Robbins III as dead Billy the Kid's lawyer to speak for him. Guess what Billy's corpse told the judges? He wanted himself and his mother dug up. In reality, corpses can't appear in courts. Worse, Robbins' so-called Billy was Brushy Bill. The exhumation petitions of the Lincoln and Tobacco County lawmen were just as absurd, arguing for DNA from graves lacking valid remains. Then things got worse for the hoaxers. The head of the Office of the Medical Investigator, or OMI, was ethical. He and his forensic anthropologist refused to issue exhumation permits for the obvious publicity stunt. And Mary Hahn's law firm relentlessly drove home realities, including that New Mexico's statute of limitations to prosecute Pat Garrett for murder had run out in 1891. In 2004, the lawmen petitioners finally gave up trying to dig up Billy and his mother. That didn't mean Richardson and his lawmen gave up their hoax in 2004. They merely rewrote it, scorning the public as fools. Their hoax had first claimed that Garrett didn't shoot Billy. Now, they said, Garrett did shoot Billy, and they had the carpenter's bench on which he'd been laid out. But what good was that? Shot Billy meant dead Billy. Not here. The ridiculous new narrative was that Pat shot Billy non-fatally to play dead on the bench and then used the murdered innocent victim for the burial. The purpose of this silliness was DNA. Blocked from their fake exhumations, the hoaxers were desperate for DNA. They pretended the bench had shot Billy's blood DNA. Would any forensic expert touch such fakery? Yes. The hoaxers found one known to crave limelight who had a lab to process his so-called DNA samples. Hidden from the public was that valid DNA is called reference DNA, meaning it comes with 100% certainty from the individual in question. Picture a fingerprint. If the bench had a fingerprint claimed to be Billy the Kid's, but you had no actual kid fingerprints with which to compare it, you'd have no way of proving it was Billy's fingerprint on the bench. The same applied to blood, if its few stains were blood and not more likely rust. Worse, the bench couldn't be proven as the actual one in Billy's nighttime wake. Even worse, though not known until my years of litigation against the lawmen, no DNA came from the bench scrapings. But the hoaxers lied that they'd gotten the bench blood DNA of playing dead Billy to match with Brushy or any other pretender to see if they'd been surviving Billy. Their forensic expert, anticipating a TV franchise and being paid by its future producer for his fake investigation, kept going. He also declared to the press that Pat Garrett was a liar, capable of murder, because he'd said his second bullet missed Billy and hit Peter Maxwell's headboard, but no strike was found on the headboard. Omitted by the shady forensic expert was that the headboard he used is just a big hole, having only an outer rim, the rest missing for the bullet strike. That expert also claimed to the press that Garrett actually fired crouching on the floor. Why? The hoaxers had given him a toy-sized box they called a washstand. It had bullet holes through it. Not part of the real historical scene, it also had no cartridge to date the shot. But the expert made up that the boxes, being only about 2 feet high, proved Garrett shot it from the floor like a ducking coward. That 2004, The Billy the Kid case is Richardson-appointed State University history teacher, official historian, co-produced, wrote, and narrated a History Channel documentary backing Brushy Bill and Richardson's investigation. His faked history began with the Fort Sumner killing being a mystery as to its victim. The program's real historical value is presenting almost all the Billy the Kid case hoaxers, including Bill Richardson, like a rogues gallery. By 2005, the hoax needed more TV footage. There was also a new Lincoln County sheriff who continued the Billy the Kid case by deputizing its past sheriff and deputy. The only grave available for ransacking was Arizona pretender John Miller's because the state's governor was adequately corrupt to permit desecration in her state-run cemetery. For it, the lawmen prepared a Lincoln County Sheriff's Department supplemental report for their Garrett murder case. One of the lawmen's friends posed as a forensic expert assisting the exhumation who believed John Miller was Billy the Kid. The hoaxers also hired an on-site moonlighting Maricopa County forensic anthropologist. She ended up a liability by being honest. There were other problems. The graves were unmarked, and the lawmen were rushing to avoid their past disaster of court petitioning for exhumation permits. Also, they had no DNA to compare with anyone, though they were pretending to have Billy's blood DNA from the carpenter's bench. Then, things got worse. They backhoed one grave. Then, they felt uncertain. So, they backhoed the adjoining grave too. They were pushing their luck. There certainly weren't two Billys for pretended justification. The random man was inescapable proof of grave robbing. The director of the Texas lab used by the hoax's forensic expert was on site to bag the bones for a legal transport across state lines to Texas for DNA extractions and to be in their TV program being filmed. And he ended up extracting DNA from the random man. So the footage became crime scene evidence, which the nervous producer subsequently hid. That was because an Arizona amateur historian who'd been angrily following the hoax saw the ravaged ground in Miller's cemetery and reported the hoaxers as grave robbers to Arizona's Attorney General. The case was investigated by the Prescott Police Department. Real legal consequences elicited a torrent of lies by the lawmen. They denied doing the dig. They pretended it was justified by proving John Miller was Billy the Kid because the corpse was buck-toothed and had a bullet hole through its left scapula. That generated press. But one reporter quoted their honest, moonlighting Maricopa County forensic anthropologist who said it was the random body that had buck teeth and it was his right, not left scapula that had non-bullet damage. And John Miller, with known broken hip, had no teeth at all. Only corrupt intervention by Governor Richardson and cover-up by Arizona's governor saved the hoaxing lawmen from deserved prosecution. The hoaxers also tried to dig up Brushy Bill in Hamilton, Texas, but I'd informed Hamilton's mayor that they had no DNA to match with anyone, so he demanded proof of Billy the Kid DNA before any digging, and they slunk off. Meanwhile, confident of immunity, the hoaxing lawmen planned an exciting overseas trip. a French filmmaker, duped by Richardson's original New York Times announcement, had made a film backing their hoax. It won a category in the 2006 Cannes Film Festival. The lawmen were her guests and, dressed like cowboys, toured as heroes. Since each twist and turn of the hoax was backed by New Mexico's complicit major newspapers, as well as the hoaxing editor-in-chief of a glossy Old West magazine, I ghost wrote hoax-exposing articles for a Santa Fe syndicated journalist. He was also willing to act as my proxy to submit open records requests to the lawmen to get their claimed DNA results. They obviously hid the records and were shielded by New Mexico's corrupt attorney general. In 2006, Richardson was reelected as governor. My journalist proxy had no stomach to take him on with my open records requests. So I gave up my anonymity. I did it big time. I sent a records request to Richardson. I made an American Academy of Forensic Sciences Ethics Committee complaint against the DNA expert. I contacted the FBI and made a RICO case against Richardson, the Arizona governor, and the participating lawman. RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act of 1970 against organized crime. By 1997, it broadened to any conspiracy for the same criminal objective. That fit the Billy the Kid case hoaxers. I also sent my own open records requests to the lawmen, who thereby learned my name. Here's what happened. Richardson hid records. The Forensic Ethics Committee shielded their high-profile member, denying wrongdoing. My RICO case was killed by the state U.S. attorney, who was later removed for other cases protecting Richardson, though he was a Republican. And the lawmen withheld records by claiming the exception for an ongoing criminal investigation, meaning Garrett's murder case, while reporting me to the U.S. Marshals Service, a division of Homeland Security, presumably as a terrorist, for requesting their records. Unaware that I'd been the one-man band behind their problems, they hoped to scare me off. But I knew their fellow hoaxer was the historian for the U.S. Marshals Service and guessed he was the recipient. Instead of retreating, in 2007 I hired an attorney to begin open records violation litigation against the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department lawmen, the two sheriffs, and the original deputy. The DNA records existed at the time of my request, but the complicit district judge let the lawmen stonewall me for 7 years, hoping to wear me out. Additionally, 5 sets of my own attorneys tried to throw the case until I finally went pro se. For the litigation, the lawmen lied that the Billy the Kid case had been their private hobby, thus immune to open records requests, which was for public officials. That left them ridiculously claiming that they didn't know why they were listed as lawmen on all exhumation petitions and in the press. And the judge ignored that their attorneys were being paid in tax dollars for defending them as public officials. Also, they forged their forensic experts' DNA reports to remove their lawman titles and the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department to match their hobbyist claim. Finally, the judge gave up and declared that I'd prevailed. But prevailing in the land of Santa Fe ring enchantment doesn't really mean prevailing. The lawmen's attorneys had been paid $500,000 tax dollars for stonewalling and lying. But as prevailing, I was owed $966,000 as the accrued per day penalty for 7 years of wrongfully denied records. The judge canceled it. How? He used a new state Supreme Court decision backing the state's corrupt attorney general from a major New Mexico landowning and political family who'd gotten a huge open records violation penalty himself. His response was to rewrite the Open Records Act to make up that penalties were for personal injury from not getting records, like being in a car wreck. The corrupt New Mexico Court of Appeals and Supreme Court backed him, even though legislators write laws, not the judiciary like him, and access to public records is any citizen's fundamental right. The daily penalties were to force turnovers by corrupt officials. But my judge seized on my being a whistleblower with no personal injury to claim I didn't qualify for payment. The Court of Appeals denied my appeal. The Supreme Court refused to hear my appeal of that. Why? Take a look at its Chief Justice. He'd backed the corrupt Attorney General's rewrite, was a Richardson appointee and major donor, and his attorney wife had represented Richardson in his pay-to-play litigation, then participated in his Billy the Kid case hoax. The upshot is that my guilty lawmen defendants got off scot-free, and the press hid it. Are you getting a feeling for the impenetrable Santa Fe ring in action? During my litigation, Richardson's governorship was coming to its 2010 end. Having missed out on his presidency bid to Barack Obama, he still wanted to win the Billy the Kid case. He announced his investigation would decide him on pardoning Billy the Kid. He still wanted to make Brushy Billy. So I contacted the Garrett family. Some angry members demanded a meeting with Richardson. That generated press. He met them that August. I wrote their demands. But Richardson only promised not to mention Brushy by name in a pardon. I knew he was faking, since his so-called investigation was only about Brushy. In December, Richardson's last month in office, he tried a desperate ploy. He claimed a history-buff attorney had sent him a pardon petition for Billy the Kid, proving Lew Wallace broke his pardon promise. I got a copy and contacted Lew Wallace's great-grandson, a New York Times writer. He accused Richardson of defaming Wallace. He threatened litigation. Meanwhile, I contacted the AP reporter in Santa Fe, who until then had refused to cover the hoax. But the pardon, plus involvement of Garrett and Wallace families, were attention-grabbing, so he did the story. I also told him that Richardson's so-called random pardon petitioning attorney was actually his own attorney from his pay-to-play litigation and was the wife of his appointed big donor, Supreme Court's Chief Justice. Like a boxer, having sustained multiple bad blows, staggering Richardson managed to keep standing. World press awaited his pardon decision, now for the last day of his governorship. That day, Richardson finally crumbled to the mat. He claimed feebly that he just learned that Billy the Kid was an outlaw, so he couldn't pardon him. His Billy the Kid case was over, except for my years of open records litigation to finish my mop-up operation. But the other Billy the Kid case hoaxers didn't want the party to end. They'd been spoiled by worldwide publicity and a fantasized life as TV personalities. They were soon churning out hoax books, reinventing the Billy the Kid case hoax and John Miller exhumation as having been their private hobby investigation to prove Billy the Kid history wasn't as written. So I continued to write books refuting them, as will be presented in future talks. The Talk to Foul starts exposing the nitty-gritty of the Billy the Kid case hoax.